Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Growth with Monet. And y'all know it is Autism Awareness Month, so I could not let the month end without joining this discussion. Um, so basically, today we're going to be talking about my experience as a mama of a baby on spectrum. And also, we're going to be talking about it as a professional who works with babies and lovies on spectrum as well. So, I'm really excited to get into today's video. As always, I have my notes here with me just so that I stay on track with what I got to say. And we're just going to jump right into it. If you're new here, hi, my name is Monet, or you can call me Mo. And welcome to my channel. This is where we talk about all things growth, mental health, and wellness related, and we share stories, experiences, and vibe with one another in hopes to create a supporting community where we all can thrive and be well. Um, let's get into this story. I got my tissues ready. Mamas, get your tissues ready because this one might be a tearjerker, okay? Um, I became a mom uh, at 22 of a living child. I was married at 20, was pregnant at 20, miscarried at 20, and got pregnant and gave birth to my first living baby girl. We'll call her Big Sister at 22 years old. Um, let's just go through the whole thing. My pregnancy was a high risk pregnancy. They categorized me as high risk from the beginning, but it took them 12 weeks to figure out that I was actually pregnant because I had the unforgivable flu. And ladies, if you know, you know. So I had the unforgivable flu and I was miserable. I was losing so much weight. I couldn't keep anything down. Um, and all of my pregnancy tests were coming back negative. So I'm buying tests like crazy. And it like just everything negative, negative, negative. Went to the ER, negative. Ultrasound, negative. Like nothing. I finally go to an OBGYN and they do a blood test, a blood draw. And I was pregnant, but no one told me. So I was sick for about 2 more weeks before I was like over it at this point. Somebody needed to figure out what's wrong with me. I went to a clinic on base because I started bleeding, and I was genuinely confused because that was the first time that I realized in all of this sickness that I had not had my cycle at all. So I'm in the clinic. They're doing the ultrasound with the little um, sonogram machine, and sure as shit, there is Big Sister cooking up in my womb. And I was very far along. I was about 8.5 weeks pregnant. I was very far along. And I was bleeding. And because I had the history of a miscarriage and I needed the surgery, they were like, hey, go home, lay down, don't do nothing. Take a breath, take a breath, and relax. Set me an OBGYN appointment for 2 weeks out so they could get some good measurements and really just figure out like what was the goings on with baby. And everything was fine. She was doing great. I was sick. I felt miserable, but my baby was healthy, so I was happy. Around 27 weeks, I went to get my genetic testing done, and they sent me over to a specialist, because they noticed some abnormalities in her sonograms that they have been tracking. And I guess after a certain point in gestation, certain things that you see are no longer supposed to be there. We didn't see those changes with Big Sister, so they sent me over to a specialist at the Children's Hospital, and got some more, I guess stronger sonograms. And this is where the kind of like anxiety started, because I would bleed quite frequently during my pregnancy, and I learned when I went to the specialist that Big Sister had a heart murmur, which is typical in a certain point of utero development, but after a while, the baby's heart should be developed as they expect. She also had holes in her kidneys, and there was quite a bit of fluid around her skull, and there were a few other things, and they were just like, hey, we want to encourage you to go get this amniotic fluid tested so that way we can know. But the trade-off is that you kind of heighten your risk for a miscarriage, or something could go wrong, right? And they have to tell you that to cover themselves. And we sat and we talked with the geneticist, and they did all the measurements, and I was doing all the stress tests and everything, down to the day I went into labor. This happened. So like the last trimester and a half, sonograms every week, stress tests every week. I started laboring on my due date, and I continued to labor for 3 days beyond my due date at home. I was not in active labor. I was in pre-labor, with about a minute and a half contractions. Like, that's about how long they lasted, and they were about a minute apart. So I was not getting a break for about 3 days. And excuse me, the day I went into labor, I knew I was going into labor, and my kid's dad, I'll never forget, I was in the kitchen making a scrambled egg sandwich because I had been back and forth through the hospital so much. I'm like, they're not going to let me eat when I come in here. So I need to make me something to eat. I made me a scrambled egg sandwich. And I was supposed to have a doctor's appointment that day, and I was supposed to do a stress test and everything. And I went to the emergency room. They sent me up to labor and delivery, and they were basically like, oh, baby's not ready. Your water hasn't broken. I was dilated. I was like 3.5 or 4 centimeters dilated, but they were like, if we don't see any progress, we'll just send you across the street to your OBGYN and let them check you out, and they'll tell you next steps. And the nurse and the doctor on call was coming in to discharge me, and I told them I had to pee. And they were coming in to check me to make sure I didn't dilate anymore, and my water broke. So now it's baby time. Baby's coming, and she's coming fast. And we really didn't have much time after that. They were like, all right, let's get her into like L&D, and let's have us a baby. And I would say about 7 or 8 minutes later, she was here. Like, it was very quick. And there was nothing wrong. Like, they took her and they were like, we want to check because baby girl's got all these concerns, and we just want to make sure she's good. She was perfectly healthy. Handed me my baby, and I immediately fell in love. Actually, with my doctor, with my OBGYN, she was so sweet. I gave birth to her. She asked me if I wanted to hold her immediately. She was like, you don't want me to clean her off? I was like, hand her here. Give me my baby. Laid her on my chest, immediately latched. It was like chef's kiss. Couldn't have gone any smoother, right? And, we did a delayed cord clamping and delayed, the placenta passing. Like, everything went it was great. I had an epidural, so I had to stay because my legs were numb for like 2 days. And And then they sent us home. And 2 or 3 weeks into new motherhood, this baby would not stop crying. And I just remember thinking like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? She won't stop crying like unconsolably. Like she would not stop. It didn't matter if she was swaddled. It didn't matter if I latched her. It didn't matter if I was holding her. It didn't matter if I was crying with her. Like she just would not stop crying. I felt like I was losing my mind. And I remember talking to the pediatrician, and she's just like, oh, it's cold and it's lonely out in the world because you're used to the comfort of your womb. So, that could be a part of it. And I remember Big Sister had to be about 2 months old. And this is where I realized something something was amiss because she did not sleep. It was very bizarre. I felt like for 2 months old, you should definitely be snoozing. And she was up and alert and looking around, and she wanted to be like starting to like turn her head and lift her head and rolling over and just was doing quite a bit for a 2 month old. I just was like, this is not supposed to be like this, right? And if you guys don't have the Glow app, I highly recommend it. This video is not sponsored, but Glow helped me through my fertility tracking to conceive, as well as, tracking my development from my babies. And I really love them. I still have them now to help me track my cycles and just stay on top of everything. So if you don't have Glow, definitely check them out. But yeah, so I was just like marking off all the milestones, going to the pediatric appointments and giving the doctor all the details. And I'm like, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's cool. First year went off without a hitch. She just cried a lot. And I'm thinking, well, maybe she's colicky or maybe she's, got big emotions. And I don't know. I'm crying too. We crying together. We'll figure it out. Right. And I want to say she was about 8.5 months old. And I noticed that she would coo, right? And I don't have Snapchat anymore, but there's a video, and if I can find it, I'll add it to this, where she would do like this Chewbacca sound, which I cannot. It's like this throat, like gruttle, like kind of noise that she would make, and it's very similar to like a sound that like some rappers make, where they kind of go, or like like it sounded like a pigeon. She sounded like a pigeon, and I remember there was a song going on at the time, and I told her, I said, "Big sister, say, oh," and she did it. And I remember thinking like, my baby is not talking. And they always tell you like, don't compare your child to anyone else. Every baby has their own journey. But I just remember feeling in my gut like, my baby don't talk. Like, she started walking really early. She was walking unassisted by 8.5, 9 months old. She was rolling around, picking her head up, motor skills on point, everything. She was hitting her milestones, but she was not talking. And I remember thinking like, oh God, this is just bothering me so much. And on the professional side, working with families with children with intellectual disabilities and autism, I was cautioned quite a lot by like their dad and just other people. And I think that I would like to think that they meant well anyway, but they were just like, don't put that on her. Don't, there's nothing wrong. She's just moving at her own pace. Don't, just don't do that. Just let her develop on her own. So I waited and I just watched. And she's now a year old. I'm now pregnant with little sister very early on in the pregnancy. And big sister is having the biggest tantrums on top of sleep regressing and not talking, not even saying words, not even mimicking words, just kind of making sounds, right? Um, there's this metaphysical shop that we used to go to a lot, and they had this fairy garden out in the front. And big sister she loved the little fairy figurines. And I remember developing like anxiety about going in because I knew that she loved to be there. She liked to go in the garden and play, and it was great because it was gated, and I didn't have to like worry about her hurting herself. And um, she would just get fixated on these fairies every time. And I remember starting to feel like I don't want to go because I didn't want her to lash out about the fairies. And I went and I took her, and she banged her head on the floor. And they had like this concrete floor. And I had baby sister strapped to my chest. So my reaction time was way off, and she banged her face on the floor. Professionally, we call that SIB, self-injurious behavior, where you are so frustrated, so agitated, you are beyond the point of being consoled, and sometimes that manifests with kids or individuals hitting themselves and hurting themselves, just trying to find a release for all of that energy. And I couldn't catch her in time, and she cracked her two front teeth right down the middle, clean crack, right down the middle of both teeth. She bust her lip, bruised her nose up. All of this under her eye was bruised, and her face and her lips and her mouth. And I remember thinking, like, at 2 years old, I'm like, I don't know what to do because I have this new baby. I don't really know what I'm doing with the first one, and she's hurting herself. And I don't know how to help her. And I remember taking her to the dentist to check to make sure that she didn't like damage anything too badly. Thankfully, she didn't crack her teeth up to the root. Funny story, when those two teeth fell out, they did fall out in half. Excuse me, they did fall out in half. And that was kind of like a bittersweet moment because I just remember her being so small and me feeling so helpless. Like I didn't know how to help my baby. But sat down with the pediatrician, voiced my concerns again, and she was just like, well, she talks. There's this thing called scripting. If you're a mama of a child with autism or intellectual disability, you know. Scripting and scrolling. Both of which big sister she does. Sometimes it's functional, sometimes it's not. All the time it's singing. And when she was smaller, 2 or 3, she would sing. She was really into trolls, and she would just sing it all the time. Do 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 do. Everybody, shake your hair and feel united. All the time. And sometimes it was functional. So like she would be repeating the words of a movie that she saw, but it would apply to something that she was trying to get done, right? And so I, expressed my concerns to her pediatrician. And because of her age, we got referred to early intervention. And God, she had the best speech therapist. My daughter's speech therapist is the reason why I am a behavior therapist. She's literally the reason why. Because she came in after they did their evaluations and everything. She came in and she sat with big sister. She got to know her. She didn't put any expectations on her. And she would always turn to me and say, Mom, what have you noticed? And I would tell her what I would notice. And she goes, okay, well, we can work on that. And she helped with her motor skills, and she kind of helped her learn sign language so that we could communicate, because Big sister, she would literally climb on top of the cabinets on the stove, on top of the refrigerator. Like, she didn't have any safety awareness, she didn't have any stranger awareness. Parks were difficult, amusement parks were a no go. Pools, anything with water, she was just so excited. She was not responsive to her name. Um, when she was small like that, we had locks on the doors and safety locks, which I highly encourage anyway, but we had to kind of double down on that because there was an incident where she let herself out of the house after she learned how to work a lock. She let herself out of the house, and me and my neighbors and the fire station, thank God we lived right on the corner next to a fire station. We were out looking for her for about 20 minutes. Thankfully, she was okay. She had her tablet. She was sitting under my neighbor's porch eating Cheez-Its, completely safe. But I just remember in that moment of thinking, like, I am out of my depth here. And I told the speech therapist that I'm like, she doesn't answer to her name. She doesn't respond. I have no idea if she hears me. Like, I don't know what to do. And I told her all of the things that I tried. And she goes, have you ever looked into becoming a paraprofessional? And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. I was coming from a background of nannying with families with children with intellectual disabilities and autism, but I hadn't had any formal training. I was just going off of like my gut, right? Up until that point. So she sits me down. She explains to me what a paraprofessional is, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll look into it. Um, I looked into it, and I actually ended up. An old friend of mine in high school was a behavior technician at a different company, and I ended up asking her about it, and she was like, "Yeah, it's pretty similar." She gave me some companies to, look into. Found one, applied, and I was honest. I was like, "I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just taking a shot in the dark here." And I'm forever thankful for that interview because the lady that interviewed me, her name was Amanda, I'll never forget. She was like, "You're exactly the type of person that we need in this field." And that fed something for me because it reinforced me on the mothering side of like, you know what you're doing, girl. Trust your gut, right? That had been something I was struggling with because everyone's like, oh, don't project, don't project, don't project. But I just knew like something had to give, right? But that fed something in me. Started taking my classes and doing the coursework and everything to become a behavior technician. And I absolutely fell in love with my job. um, and on the mothering side, it helped me better understand how to teach my kid because I knew I needed her to know and understand. And I wasn't sure if she was understanding because I didn't know how she learned best. So that was something that I feel like was so pivotal in our relationship and our dynamic because I learned that she learns through music and song. I was able to teach her almost everything that she knew through singing. And she's still a little songbird now. She sings quite a bit, but um, whenever there's something new that she has to tackle, I take her back to the basics and we sing to the "You Are My Sunshine" tempo, and I teach her what she needs to know because she just learns differently. And I feel like that's something I want to point out about people with autism or intellectual disabilities. Um, a lot of the time, it's not that they're incapable of learning; it's just that they don't learn how society like standardizes it. So you have to get creative. And I think that with Big Sister, because she was so young and she had so many what I felt like were telltale signs, I was able to get her into early intervention, speech, OT. She did sleep therapy. There were like so many things happening at one time, but um, it definitely helped both of us. Um, She did not get her official diagnosis until she was 4. And the reason because usually they make you wait until after 3. Depending on where you live, the testing process is like a long wait. It's crazy. And sometimes it's like a 1, 2, maybe sometimes 3-day thing. Like you might have to come back. It depends on the tolerance of the kid and how much they can get done in one session. And then, of course, there's the revision of the scores and then the final official diagnosis. Big sister was actually diagnosed with quite a few things, but we decided to focus on what was more disruptive at that time, which was the autism diagnosis. But I was able to get her into preschool with the early intervention on IEP as developmental delay. And that was a decision that was made because I knew that in order for her to thrive, she needed more time to get acclimated to environmental expectations. And I could not see a world where she would thrive the best way possible if she didn't get that exposure to the classroom. So I went to enroll her. They said, she's not old enough. Try again next year. And I said, no, you're going to take her now. And they said, no, we're not. What is her intellect? I want to point out that just because you have an autism diagnosis does not mean you also have an intellectual disability. And that is something that I had to learn to advocate for with my daughter because her intellect and her IQ scores far supersede her age. So the schools were telling me she's academically on par where she needs to be. She can perform academically, so we're not going to take her. And I had to fight with the school board about the importance of social and economical development in a child her age and why it's important to not only depend on the academic success and the literacy of a child, because they also need to be, they're also learning through socialization. That's how children learn primarily. I had to fight with the school board for them to get my baby into preschool so that she could learn in an environmentally appropriate space for what the expectations for school was. That was a nightmare, but I did it. And on the professional side, I just found myself very thankful because in doing that, like I learned the vocabulary that I needed, I learned the verbiage, but more than that, I learned how to advocate. Advocacy in the behavioral health field is so important. You're advocating for your client, you're advocating for their needs, you're advocating for their treatment a lot of the time to sometimes to the families. Just like on the professional end with the child, when you're working with a kid, you're advocating to your BCBA or your BCABA and your supervisors, and you're letting them know, like, hey, this is the protocol that we're implementing, but it's not working. So this field definitely taught me a lot about advocating. And I was able to take that and implement some things with my daughter. So we had a bedtime routine, we had a bath time routine. She was going through sleep regression. She still sleep regresses. It happens around this time every year. And I learned tools. I learned tangibles. Like I learned how to help my daughter. And it was so funny because it all came natural to me, but I just didn't trust myself because I was so fixated on all of the things that I would see that I didn't know what to do, like the SIB and the head banging, and she would scream and she would bite herself and she would slap herself and she wouldn't sleep and she wouldn't eat. She would not eat anything at all. So I really had to learn how to trust myself in motherhood. So I could best like show up for her, all while parenting myself and this little baby that I have strapped to my chest. So that was interesting. That was a lot of the challenges. A lot of the triumphs came into play where I saw that she was getting it. Like she would sign for help. She still signs for more. She wants to eat. She wants to drink. She's hungry. She's sorry. Please, like I started seeing those skills happening. I started seeing the pentagraphs. I started seeing her um, asking, pointing, pulling, like not just relying on her self sufficiency and grabbing a chair and books and climbing on the counter and walking on the stove and doing things where she could really hurt herself. I saw those decreasing and I saw her communication increasing, which is if you have a nonverbal child, to see their attempts to communicate with other people happening and like blossoming right in front of your eyes. I just remember feeling so like amazed. Like she's probably one of the most hardworking people I know because basically if you're classified as nonverbal, vocal and verbal communication does not come natural to you. It takes a lot of work. So for her to come and say more, it almost didn't even matter what she was asking me for. I was just like, you can have whatever you want. Like you're asking me, you can have whatever you want. Like my first child, she did not call me mommy. She didn't call me at all until she was almost 5. She'll be 7 in a couple weeks. So just when I think about how far she'll come to me and she'll say, "Mommy, can I have a tablet? Mom, can we go outside? Mom, can I have something to eat?" She knows what she wants. "Can I have butter noodles? Mommy, can we go to the movie theaters today?" Like just to hear her talking in that way. Yes, she's still nonverbal, but she can communicate her needs. And so just big wins and even little wins, potty training, brushing your teeth, texture sensitivity, you know, being able to sit still. She's such a busybody. If she's able to sit down and just play and imaginative play, um, it just took her a really long time, and I know she's tried really hard. And so I'm just really proud of her, and I think that um, it's important for me to do this video because if you're not careful, you can get lost in the doing of life. And I really am trying to be a lot more intentional about how I experience life. Um, and so I'm just able to see a lot of the time how she's also experiencing it alongside of me. And I can see that she's taking in the information and it's sticking with her. So I'm just really proud of her. Um, she does still have some sensory, like we use some tools that we use. She has a hypersonic toothbrush, so it vibrates really fast. Weighted blankets. I try to keep textures that she likes. She likes tulle. She likes dresses, so she wears a lot of dresses. And also offer like sensory input. She likes deep pressure, so we go to trampoline parks and we play a lot of sports. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying not to cry. uh, she likes to be squeezed and like massaged. Um, she likes to jump and run fast, really fast. So I just try to provide environments where she can do that. On the school side, she is in a self inclusion special education class, and that is because of her hyperactivity. She's really active, and she's also smart as a whip. The issue is that she is in the first grade, but she's doing third grade work. So now, with us transitioning her out of self inclusion into general education classrooms, we kind of have a disconnect because the sitting still and attending expectations a lot harder or a lot more strict or consistent for children in a general education classroom. And her ability to attend to the work and attend to it correctly um, is high. So, because she does third grade work in her self inclusion class. So, there's a balance there, but I don't necessarily know if I feel like that is a challenge or a triumph yet. I'm still working on it. But pretty much our daily lives right now just kind of look like we wake up, we brush our teeth, we wash our face, we get ready for school. Um, we used to and have since removed the visual aids. And what the visual aids would look like was we would have these poster boards with pictures of her or the thing that we wanted her to do. So as she was preparing for school, her first and second year in school, we would have the visual aid by the door, and I would basically like a checklist. Big sister, did you wake up? And she would say yes or no. Yes. Did you wash your face? Yes or no. Did you brush your teeth? Yes or no. Did you get dressed? Yes or no. Did you put on your socks? Yes or no. Did you put on your shoes? Yes or no. Did you check your backpack for your lunch? Like it's meticulous, and sometimes you got to do it because now it goes off without a hitch. She wakes up, she washes her face, she brushes her teeth, she gets dressed, she eats breakfast, she puts her socks and shoes on, she packs her backpack. Like it's, and I ask just for good measure because I just feel like that's good parenting. But I know that because I took the time to study how my child best learns, I know she learns in systems and in puzzles. I teach her in puzzles. It sticks with her. Um, so more often times than not, she's got it all handled. But just I feel like good mothering, just ensuring that she gets that done. Um, what are some other things that we do? She has oral fixations. She likes particular foods. I try to provide them for her as long as she's eating everything else that she needs to too. She's hard on vegetables, but she will eat smoothies and she will take supplements. So I do what works. I think that this process has definitely learned me. This process has definitely taught me to be flexible. Um, she does not like broccoli. It tastes grassy to her. But if I put broccoli on her plate, she will eat it. And I don't have to always fight her. Sometimes I do have to feed her if she's having a day where she's like stimming or scrolling and it's maladaptive or it's not conducive to what she needs to be getting done. Then I will kind of move into that hand over hand prompting or like gestural prompts, and I'll say, hey, what are you supposed to be doing? Where's my nose? Like get her to pay attention. And I'm like restating the expectation, like we're eating dinner right now, so I need you to go sit down and eat. Um, and I also try to allow for her to have her own dominion. Like, I think all of this is just about balance, really. So I just try to, keep that in mind. Um, Support. I'm looking at my notes, y'all. Wait, let me make sure I didn't skip anything. Tips and strategies. We went over the visuals. I actually built a rock wall for the kids at one point, and that really helped my daughter. We turned our dining room into a playroom, and there was a giant trampoline in the middle of my dining room. If you guys know me in real life, when big sister was a baby and little sister was an infant, was a toddler, and little sister was an infant, you guys remember that big red and blue trampoline in my dining room, and there was like toys everywhere, and there was a soft mat on the floor because she was still kind of doing the SIB at the time. And we had a lot of pictures and like star charts and reward systems all over the place, and I think that they all worked. Honestly, I really do. More than anything, consistency is key, and that is something on the professional side that ABA taught me. Like, we're not ignoring the child, we're only ignoring the behavior that we don't want to see. And I had to I had to unlearn how I was raised, because some of the things that my kids do is really triggering. And I know now that that's just like my inner child trying to protect them for something that I would have gotten in trouble with as a child. So I was really able to kind of take a step back and remove myself from that and just say, hey, is it really that big of a deal? Like, no, it's not. Like, let's learn how to work around it in a lot of ways, especially with big sister. So when she has meltdowns, she's always kind of been like an unconsolable kid, even when she was an infant. So with other people, they would think like, oh, you're ignoring your baby because you're not consoling her. I don't have the type of child that likes to be consoled. I have the type of child that likes to look in the mirror and cry. And when I realized that that was triggering for her, I removed her from the mirror and I just distract her. And she'll say, I'm so sad, I'm really upset, I'm angry, I'm hurt. She can use her feeling words really well. And we work through the feeling and I don't address the screaming. And it works for us. And I know that that's hard because other people, I feel like something that I really had to work through on the mothering side is that I didn't ever want my child to be perceived as a burden or a bother. So I was always trying to keep her quiet or keep her behaved because I didn't want anyone else to be inconvenienced by her behavior. I have since had to forego that mindset because it's not conducive to the type of child that I have. She's loud. She's going to give you her feelings. She has things to say when she's ready to talk, and I'm here to listen. Whether or not you think that my child is too loud has nothing to do with me. And I had to learn that. I used to keep her from the park and the playground and like the kids' activities because I just always felt myself apologizing. Whereas now, a lot of women and parents who reach out to me for support, I notice that they do that a lot. They're like, I'm so sorry, my kid is loud, or, my kid's having a tantrum, my kid's having a meltdown. And the first thing I always say is like, do not apologize to me for your child ever. This is not a place where sorry exists. We're just working through it. So, as far as support and advocacy goes, that is pretty much my stance on the matter. I maintain my stance on that matter. I think that no matter what state you're in and no matter what status of diagnosis you have for your child, I highly encourage you to ask your neurologist team or your pediatric team what your resources are. Especially if you're on the East Coast, there's some pretty good resources out here. Everyone is not into ABA, and that's okay. But I do highly recommend, getting curious and figuring out what will work for you and your family. What type of, support do you think that you need? Is it OT? Is it speech? Is it just, talk therapy? Is it play therapy? Just kind of getting creative and seeing what other agencies are out there, if there's any support groups, if there's any, nonprofit organizations where you can go out and, get access to different things for your kids. There's some nonprofit organizations here that I'll leave in the comments below that you can, get matinee tickets to go to see plays and things like that. And they're sensory friendly, for kids who maybe you want to take your child to see a play, but they can't handle an orchestra. Like, they take you at an earlier time in the day where you won't be disrupting anyone. You're free to move about the cabin. You have your earphones. They give you sensory, like, stems, and, like, it's all good. I think a lot of us on this side, on the parenting side, can really just have, like, it helps to have that reminder of, like, everything's fine. It's all good. It's good. We're going to get through it. And that's with every growth spurt and every change. So that also goes into educational support too. Like, learning is not linear, and schools are a business. So advocacy, as far as advocating for your child, advocating for yourself and your needs, any little thing that you feel like is going to help your child. The biggest tip that I can give any of the mamas or dads out here watching, and they're trying to figure out how to better help their kid, especially in the school setting, get it in the IEP. If you can get it into the IEP, then the school has to accommodate. If the school does not have what is required to accommodate said IEP, your child will be moved to a school where they can meet the standards of the IEP. And I know a lot of the time we get really scared about moving our kid around and we don't want them to have to adjust and like meet new people and kind of get into the swing of it. Kiddos are way more resilient than we give them credit for. And honestly, they're not going to be in school forever. So, flexibility is important. You don't want to have a child that's too rigid because they were not challenged to be flexible. Obviously, don't do that unnecessarily. But if you have a child that you feel like maybe could benefit from some other like things in their IEP, call an IEP meeting with the school. Get it in the IEP. It's a legal binding document. Get it in the IEP. Child needs more breaks. Get it in the IEP. Child needs snacks every hour. Get it in the IEP. Child needs to be able to move their legs freely. Get it in the IEP. You don't want them using scissors. Get it in the IEP. Whatever it is, get it in the IEP. That's going to help you a lot in the long run. And if you have a great teacher like my daughter has, I highly encourage build a rapport with the teachers and the educators in your school. The principal, vice principal, most vice principals handle the IEPs and all of that stuff. Your behavior interventionist, your speech pathologist. Build relationships and good rapport as the school social worker. Get to know these people. These people are the ones who are sitting in these IEP meetings making observations about your child, and they're seeing what you don't see when you're not there in the school, and you see what they don't see when they're not home, when you're at home with the kids. So it's very important that everyone's on the same page. I cannot stress that enough. My daughter's teacher will call me if she sees something or she's figured out something and she's like, hey, this is what I think is really going to be good for big sister. You know, here's my thoughts. This is how it works. What do you think? And if I agree, I say, yeah, call an IEP meeting. Get it in the IEP. 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 They need sensory relief. Get it in the IEP. That's the best way to advocate for your child in the school system. Get it into the IEP. If you cannot take control, homeschool and world school and get all of the support and things that you need for a kiddo outside of the stereotypical school setting, get it in the IEP expeditiously. Okay? Why do we celebrate autism? If you know, then you know. If you met a child with autism, then you have met one child with autism. And one of my favorite things to celebrate is how dynamically unique all of the children and lovies are, and just how much they are normal. I think Autism Awareness Month is more about normalizing difference than anything else. And when you have a kiddo with autism or any intellectual disability or communicative disorder, you'll find that they are so different that it kind of leaves you in awe. They skip to the beat of their own drums. They have a confidence like no other. It's like wild confidence. Big sister never falls. Doesn't matter what she's doing or jumping off of, she lands on her feet like a cat because she has this blind trust about herself and her body that she knows that she will catch herself and she is going to be okay. She's never fallen. She doesn't have scabs on her knees. She's not, and I was going to say she's not a clumsy kid. She's extremely clumsy. She drops things often, but she never falls, ever. Ever. And I think that we have to learn how to start celebrating what makes kids different rather than what makes them the same. And I think for me, as a mama of a kiddo with autism and as a support system for a lot of families with kiddos with autism, I think this month is more about celebrating that everyone's different and that's okay. and normalizing that. I do have a list of recommendations and resources if you are on the East Coast in this area that I am in Virginia. I'm going to post those links down in the description, and I'm going to do it that way because there's actually a resource center here. Actually, let me Google. But yeah, there's a research center here. Not research, resource center here. And it is called before I get into that, Autism Society Tidewater, Virginia. That is a phenomenal foundation. If you guys are not a part of it and you're in the Tidewater area, then definitely look into them and register and get on their list. They send a ton of emails. They have a lot of things happening for all kids of all ages, of up until I believe 22, where there's different activities, parent nights out, teen night out. They do balls and dances, and they take kids to movies, and they send them bowling and all different types of stuff. They are a great resource, phenomenal people. And right now I think they're doing a 5K. I think they're running a 5K right now, if I'm not mistaken. So definitely look into them. Let me see. What was I looking at? Oh, and then there is a resource center in Virginia Beach, and I'm pretty sure it's called FACT. Let me see. Yep, it's called FACT, and their thing is Camp Gonna Wanna Go Again. They're doing a party under the stars in May, supporting individuals with autism and their families, because children with autism are children first. I've gone into this facility quite a few times, and they partner with Centera. So if you're in the Tidewater area, this particular place is in Virginia Beach, but they have a lot of partnerships. They have a lot of programs. There's a lot of resources there as well. They do offer ABA services and behavioral health services for kiddos, but they also have so many other things. And I'm fairly new to this particular resource center, but what I loved about it was how many more resources they had inside. Like, I went in and I collected all of these pages, but it's literally 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm shooting this video, so I'm not about to go out to my car, because if I go out there, I'm staying and I'm going home. Right now I'm in the podcast studio. But yeah, definitely look into those. I'll link them below so you guys can find them. I hope that this video was helpful. I think because I just have lived with my kids that this is just my life, and I want to be able to to share my story and just talk about the reality of life with my kids, and be an inspiration to a mama who may have been or may be in the same space that I was in 5 years ago. It gets better, and even if it doesn't, it does. I think I was always nervous, like, oh my God, what if my daughter never talks? Oh my God, what if she never eats anything except for peanut butter crackers? Oh my God, what if she never eats a vegetable? What if she never... And if you get stuck up on the nevers, then you'll never know what she can do. You'll never know what they can do. I just want to thank you all for tuning in. If you made it this far, we're going to count this as the first official video of Growth with Monet on YouTube. And I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please, again, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who you think might benefit from a platform like this. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Anything you want to talk about, let me know in the comments. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns at all, y'all talk to me. I'm a chatty Cathy. I want to talk to y'all. I want this to be an open platform. That's the only way we're all really going to grow, right? So thank you so much for tuning in. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.